Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jay Encarnacion, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are thrilled to have Caesar Cruz, the founder and CEO of Seven Claves. Caesar brings a fascinating mix of expertise in food product development and commercialization, with a focus on guiding early stage food and beverage brands through scalability, compliance, and retail readiness. Based in Portland, Oregon, Seven Claves, founded in 2023, is revolutionizing how food founders turn concepts into market ready products. We'll be exploring his founding story, how his business empowers clients in the consumer packaged goods space, and his vision for scaling this impact-driven venture. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. Caesar, welcome to Founders Future.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. Thank you for taking
Absolutely.
the time.
Absolutely. A pleasure and an honor. You're doing something super cool in this space. Don't have many guests on the show that are doing what you're doing. So excited to dive in with you here. So if we could start at the beginning, Caesar, what specific problem in the food and beverage landscape really inspired you to start Seven Claves?
Where do I start? I think the biggest issue that I saw working in food was that getting a food product made is very expensive and there's a lot of pitfalls. A lot of people are very driven by passion, by flavor, by color, by whatever it is that makes your food product special. The issue is that getting a food product made is a lot more complex than people make it out to be. And so you have the FDA to contend with, you have documentation that you are supposed to have or required to have in order to get placement on different retail locations. Different publicly traded grocery stores have different requirements. And then we're not even getting into the actual ingredients themselves. So you can have an ingredient that has minimum order quantity, meaning that you only can purchase that ingredient at a certain amount. And that ingredient can come in a minimum order quantity of a tanker, or which usually is around 25,000, the specific ingredient I'm thinking about. And so it's very volatile. It can be very expensive. It can be very demoralizing. And so what we do was my personal experience, right? I saw that a lot of people, for the most part, were self-funded food projects or first-time food founders who had a day job but had a passion for food. What they were doing was they were going at it alone. And the food industry is set up for established players, for people, for not people, but corporations that have retail relationships, that have the ability to take on the risks of obtaining very large minimum order quantities because they know that they can get placements, that they have brand awareness, that they have the traction to produce these products, and they have the brand equity that they need in order to get people to take a chance on them. But food founders don't. First-time food founders don't. For self-funded projects don't. And so what we did was we took the whole thing apart. Honestly, I quit my job at a consulting firm that I was at. I assembled a team of food scientists, assembled some really amazing graphic designers who have experience in CPG and retail and FDA compliant product packaging. And then we started taking on these smaller projects that a lot of people usually won't take on because they don't have the type of capital that you need to even purchase a tanker of evaporated milk at 25,000. And so what we did was we broke the process into a de-risk phased approach to getting to market. So the first phase is essentially still product developments, but let's figure out what is the most profitable way to get to market. So what is the version of your product that is going to not just make it to market safely, meaning that it still has a shelf life that you can support a large run of the product, and still tastes like what you have been making at home or what people know and like about what you're producing, but that is also going to obtain the type of pricing or the price point that you're wanting to obtain for that product. And so when we're thinking about that, we have to think about how do we create demand for the product? Because if we go into the market and expect people to purchase the product based on just flavor alone, we have to still get over the hurdle of like, why should they buy this product in the first place? Are we relying on gimmicky marketing, which is a terrible idea? Or what else are we relying on? So we have to understand what are the drivers, what are attributes that are causing or making people spend more on these types of products, and how do we bake them into your product in a way that still makes sense for your product to be within a cost of goods that still produces the profit margin that you're after. And if after seeing those numbers, you are still ready to move forward, then let's go into the prototyping process. Let's refine it. Let's go through the sensory evaluation, through mouthfeel, aroma, texture. Let's refine the product and get it made and get it on a shelf. But it's very layered. And I think that what we do differently is we hyper focus on creating demand for the product versus just capturing demand. Because if we're just capturing demand, essentially what we're doing is we're relying on lowest cost, which is a terrible way of going to market, because large organizations can access economies of scale, large volumes at much lower rates, and can drive those products out of existence pretty quickly. And so how do we justify the product? How do we justify the costs? How do we justify premium? What are the attributes? Is it on the branding side? Is it on the formulation side? Is it on the processing? Is it packaging? So honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't know if I've answered your question.
I think you did. There was a lot there for sure, and a lot to unpack. I do want to get right into the nuts and bolts because you guys are clearly doing so much, and I want to understand as much as I know that the listeners want to understand exactly what you're providing here for your client. So if you can walk us through your core offers. So if a client comes to you, wants to work with you, what are your core offerings? What are you doing for them? How is it structured for them? And who is the ideal client for your services?
Yeah. So what if I were to boil everything down, our services, we help get your product made in a legal manner that's going to be compliant with the FDA and can safely enter a grocery store, publicly traded grocery store with shareholders and a lot of liability there. But we help you to commercialize your product in order for you to safely and profitably sell it to the general public. The ideal consumer or the ideal client of ours is really anyone that has a specific idea for either a concept or a food product. A concept may be tied to different aspirations, like maybe they're coin operated, which is totally fine. Maybe it's you wanting to commercialize your mom's hot sauce or something, right? So we get it formulated, produced, and placed on a shelf. So that includes marketing and everything. But again, ideal consumer or the ideal client for us is really anyone that wants to take their product to that next level.
Gotcha. So with that, I definitely want to dive a bit deeper into what you're doing around the offers. Being that you are the founder, right? I want to get into your brain a little bit around scaling this type of business and offer. Is there productization around it? How can you approach the idea of scaling this type of offer? Because it does sound like it's very hands-on with needing to take a food product from idea inception to on the shelves of stores. So how does that look for you? How are you planning on scaling this type of offer? Or is this something that is going to be more of a passion project and boutique? What's your mindset there?
It's definitely something that we are working to try and scale through standard operating procedures. And the reason we do that is because even though every project is different, the methods that get them the results that we want, which is either a yes, move forward, or a no, let's pause the madness and kill the idea right now before you spend too much money, is pretty standardized. So we do a lot of market research. We look for specific markers that we've defined in terms of metrics of success. And so the first part of the product development is very systematized. Everything is outlined in down to the week, what activity, what deliverables, contingency plans we have for any one project, and the product can be executed by any one of our food scientists. Sometimes we'll choose a food scientist based on their expertise or background, but for the most part, it is something that I have been thinking a lot about, because the last thing I want to do is be my own employee, right? And But yeah, to answer your question, standard operating procedures, Notion is a huge portion of how we keep things organized and understand when we're losing money, when we should be cutting ties with someone. So yeah, we take a lot of data in.
Gotcha. So on that front, is this something that you're doing a lot on your own, Caesar? Do you have a team behind you, especially around sales, marketing? What does that look like? Or are you really running the show on that side?
No, we have a team. We have a marketing team. We have food scientists. We have 5 food scientists on staff. We have a salesperson who is doing a lot of the legwork in terms of coordinating with people, getting them into calls with us. We're a big believer on content. And what we know for sure is that if someone can consume around 7 hours of our content, then they are likely to make a decision, a favorable decision, and sign with us because they've gotten to know and trust us. And so that is one of the biggest hurdles we have, just because, again, finding that right type of mix for that individual can be difficult. But yeah, we do have a decent sized team.
Gotcha. So on that, you just mentioned a bit of the challenges that you're having. So I want to get into that a bit more with you for our listeners on the acquisition side. Obviously, the space that you're in is very niche, Caesar. So what's working best for you on that? I know that content is something you're really leaning into. What other avenues or channels have you seen be successful for bringing in new leads, clients, and having more
Yeah.
predictability? Are you using ads, again, social media, referrals? What does that look like?
Yeah, for the most part, we rely heavily on Google Ads because usually not everyone's going to be looking for a food product development consultant. If you are, chances are that you're a good fit for what we're doing or that you would be receptive to what we're talking about. We pair that with some marketing automation in the sense that things are followed up appropriately, and the content is filtered specifically for the type of product category that this individual is looking for. But yeah, for the most part, I think other advantage is that we are a much younger company, both in terms of the people that work here. So we're very lean, right? And we don't subscribe to the traditional method of product developments that was established for large organizations. So you're not going to pay 80,000 for or 30,000 for food formulation. That's ridiculous. That's outdated. That's not feasible for anyone, really.
Absolutely. So on that front, when it comes to that acquisition side, I know you're saying you're relying heavily on Google Ads. Is it still something you're having challenges around bringing in predictable lead flow and clients, or what's the next step for that continued scale on that front?
It it's pretty predictable. It's pretty low volume, to be honest. The thing we are pairing that with is SEO, which is another one of our services as well, because we help our food product clients launch their projects as well. And when it comes to SEO, I think we're right now ranked number one if you search food product developments, food product and beverage consultants or something. We should come up number one. So SEO is going to be big. It's always going to be big no matter what anyone says. And I think we're showing up on ChatGPT, on Gemini as search results. So that's pretty awesome. So it's a dual approach that we're taking.
I love it. So on that same front, I definitely want to get into a bit of what your mindset is right now on the bottleneck front, whether it is, again, more predictability on the lead gen or getting more leads in the sales side, maybe expanding your sales team to really be bringing in more clients. What are some bottlenecks that you're thinking about right now that you're trying to break through?
Bottlenecks is our, I think, sales velocity for us, right? So how do we solve for sales velocity in getting people to flow through our sales funnel in an effective manner? And how do we start to improve that sales funnel utilizing the data that we do have? I think, honestly, though, it's one of those bottlenecks where, as much as I want to automate and assign the score and systematize it, you're always going to need to have someone on the sales side who has common sense and actually wants to just help people, not just feed them through a process and check off a task and scale that way.
Absolutely. So on that front, if you were able to identify one thing that if you solved it today would make the biggest impact on Seven Claves growth, Caesar? What do you think that one thing would be?
Social proof. Social proof. It's very obviously social proof is compelling, right? That's the reason why Nike, sponsors a lot of athletes. The issue with food product development is that it's tied very closely to IP, to intellectual property. And a lot of our food founders don't feel comfortable advertising that we made their formulation, which might be called Granny's Muffin Tops or something. And
Right.
so it defeats the purpose of putting that stuff out there. And it has been one of the hardest things to get, which is justifiable, right? But still, it also would have helped tremendously. The other thing too is that new clients are always wanting to talk to our existing clients, and it's difficult to justify that because this person just comes in through the door and now wants to talk to the CEO of a company that is already in market. And what happens if that relationship goes sour? It's a reflection on us. It's also not scalable. And then most people in those roles don't have the time to take on those types of calls.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that there, and obviously that being the mindset, you're really looking to put yourselves out there, continue to grow and scale and implement. What is the focus for you, Caesar, for the rest of this year going into 2026? What are you really laser focused on for that growth and scale and success?
The key focus is going to be social proof. It's going to be social proof. We're actually launching 2 products of our own. And so we're hoping that in addition to doing more podcasts where we're talking to other founders, because that's a way to validate our existence and the clientele, right? So it works both ways. And we also have some video testimonials, but also by showing the back end of how we're producing, formulating products, understanding the market, understanding flavor trends, understanding unit economic costs on ingredients, all the boring stuff that people don't really consider when they're launching a food product and doing it successfully. We're hoping to utilize that as lead magnets, as content that is designed to help people to not just get educated if that's what they're interested in, but also validate that this is something that we're experts in.
I love that. So with that, I have one more question for you here before going into the lightning round, Caesar, and that's going to be, where do you see the food consulting industry evolving in the coming years, especially with your practical, founder-minded approach? What are you doing to keep Seven Claves at the forefront of that evolution?
We're the forefront. We're watching the news. A few months ago, there was a lot of noise around tariffs, which obviously is going to directly impact the cost of goods of our ingredients, or ingredients that you need to purchase at large volumes. And so with margins being difficult to predict, we need to stay on top of what are the ingredients and what are the countries that are going to be hit the hardest. And then how do we prepare for that? Or how do we reformulate a product to still have that red hue, that the red dye that's going to be banned, to provide that plus market research, right? Because market research is going to dictate exactly what consumers are willing to pay for and what they're not. And so it's going to be the thing that that does give us our competitive edge, right? So how do anyone can make something that tastes good, but how do we make it profitable? How do we turn it into a business?
I love it. And then last but not least here, Caesar, what is the best piece of advice that you can offer to our listeners, so other founders, entrepreneurs, business owners that are tuning in and just heard your incredible journey this far? What can you leave them with before wrapping up today?
Best piece of advice is just do it. Worst case scenario is you learn a lot about the process and maybe lose some money or experiment and learn how the food industry works and what it takes. But I think as long as you treat it like an opportunity to learn, then it's well worth it.
Love it. I love that. With that, right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. And Caesar, just want to thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us today. Clear as day, you're doing some incredible things in the space. So really looking forward to seeing where you take Seven Claves. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And also check out Seven Claves at sevenclaves.com for their free resources like guides and quizzes, and follow Caesar on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/C, and that is SEA-ZUR-Cruz. And for more resources and insights, you can visit us here at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.